Hello and welcome to another edition of Youngstown Click podcast. Be connected. This podcast is for you, anyone in the region between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and we have so many listeners who don't even live in this region. They've maybe moved away or they have family here. It's really cool to hear the feedback. So whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome to another edition of the podcast. We are coming to you from Cigar Lounge in Hubbard, Ohio, which is where we have this podcast. It is an amazing place, and I am so honored that you guys today get to meet one of the co-owner, or one of the owners, a co-owner to this great place. And so far, all of our guests have loved it. The ambiance. We're going to get into that. Before we get into that, I do want to thank our sponsors, which is Ohio Flame. They do custom-made fire pits, and they're steel forged. They're made in the USA. They have a lifetime warranty. If you're looking for a really cool conversation starter fire pit, definitely check out www.ohioflame.com, made in Columbiana. And like I always say, nothing quite says community like a bonfire, right? You kind of have to kind of relax around the bonfire, kind of open up a little bit. I mean, even survive around a fire. I mean, back in the day, you know what I mean? So, so let's get started. I want to introduce you to Steve DeGenaro, who is a Hubbard native, right?
I am.
You were born and raised in Hubbard.
Born and raised, okay. And back.
And back. Okay, so tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to get into the Cigar Lounge, a little bit about like cigars, and just kind of go from there. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Perfect. I'm Steve DeGenaro. I'm new to being back in Hubbard. I grew up here. I left right after high school, and my parents lived here until about 10 years ago and retired and moved away. And I've lived in the area, not in Hubbard, but in Poland and Lake Milton. And also my wife and I also keep a place down in Columbus, Ohio.
Nice. Okay.
And so always, born and raised in the area. And I've actually been a medical guy most of my life.
Medical?
Yeah, I had a medical oxygen business.
Wow.
And I also have a consulting business. I do, it's a real niche-y thing with Medicare Part B, which is medical
the
equipment.
Advantage plans.
Yeah,
stuff. Okay.
yeah. So I work for an accrediting agency, and I do consulting, helping companies get ready for FDA or an accreditation visit.
Wow.
And so I come from that medical world.
Yeah.
By training, I'm a respiratory therapist. So we work with oxygen, and
that's the connection to the oxygen.
That's the connection.
Got it.
And I took a pivot. I'm kind of like moving toward retirement. And I took a pivot. I did a 180 degree turn.
Okay.
And I've been a cigar smoker for many, many years. Okay. I have a lot of good friends.
Speaking of being a respiratory therapist.
Yeah. That's about as opposite as you could get, right?
You're such an enigma. I mean, that's what makes you interesting. Okay.
So I actually always have said, as I went through my career, people would say, "What are you going to do when you retire? You're going to fish, you're going to golf, you're going to move down to Florida." And I said, "I'm going to go sit in a cigar store the rest of my life and smoke cigars and hang out. I like the ambiance. I like the experience. I like cigars."
You've traveled quite a bit, so you've experienced quite a few cigar shops throughout the country?
So I've, because of my medical work, I've actually worked in all 50 states.
What?
Now, I haven't been in a cigar store in every single state, but I've probably been in about 35 to 40 states worth of cigar stores. Wow. Early on, when I started traveling for work, 30 years ago, long time ago, I'd be out of town for 3 or 4 nights in a row and, staying in a hotel, working in a strange town. Sometimes I was with people. A lot of times I was by myself. And because I smoked cigars, I figured out pretty early on that it was a kind of a cool thing to do.
Right.
One night after work, I'd go back to the hotel and change into my smoking clothes, and I'd go find a place to smoke.
Okay.
And, the people were friendly. I loved the ambiance at a lot of these places.
Yeah.
And I frankly liked sitting there and having a cigar and unwinding after work. And so somewhere along the line, probably about 8 or 10 years ago, my partner Jamie, who is a very good friend of mine, and I had been talking about, smoking cigars, and we actually talked about turning it into a business.
Okay.
And the plan was we were going to do this somewhere in the Youngstown area. We weren't exactly sure where. We kind of liked the idea of downtown Youngstown because we're Mahoning Valley guys, and we know
Right.
about the steel mills, and
Yeah, the
we're
history
interested
down
in
there. Yeah.
beautiful history. Yeah. So we're looking for a place, and we spent quite a few years looking for a place. We couldn't quite figure out where we wanted to go.
Okay.
And actually, Nate, our next door neighbor who owns the winery,
Okay. Yeah.
is a cigar friend.
Got it.
And we're smoking cigars one night, and he mentioned Hubbard. And Jamie said, "I don't know anything about Hubbard. I've never been there. I don't know anything about the community." And
Wow.
he says to me, "What do you know about it?" And I said, "Well, I was actually raised there.
Wow.
I was born and raised. I went to high school there. I went to grade school there. We went to church in the community.
Wow.
My parents lived in the community, so I know a little bit about it. And I think it's a pretty cool place." And so, long story short, we, after many years of looking, we came over to the winery one day, and we looked at a property. The lady who owned this house that we're sitting in tonight,
Yeah.
Cigar,
Right.
actually was getting ready to sell, and she came out into the parking lot and engaged us in conversation. And
Not knowing that you were looking for anything.
no, she just
That's-
introduced herself, and she
wow.
knew Nate because she was a next door neighbor.
Okay.
And we started talking to her, and she asked if we were from Hubbard, and I said I was originally from Hubbard, and I just kind of made a joke and said, I'm looking to come back.
Right.
And 28 days later, we bought this house.
Come on.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. I know. So, you guys, if you're listening, maybe some of you have watched the video tour. If you would like to see a video tour, you could see that on YouTube under Youngstown Click channel. But this place is amazing. And what you have done with it.
Thank you.
There's so many ideas, so many times that people sit and they have an idea. Oh, we should do this as a business. And it never happens. And so this has happened. And it's funny because Cigarro seems synonymous with Hubbard now. Like it
Yeah,
seems like
yeah.
the perfect place. So to realize how accidental or spontaneous or serendipitous
Yeah.
that has been is really cool.
Serendipitous. That's a good word for it. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started about a year and a half ago?
So we opened about a year and 2 months ago.
Okay.
However, we bought the place about 6 months before that. It took us about 6 months to renovate. So we bought the place, and it was quite the process. It needed a lot of work. It needed a lot of renovation. It needed painted. It needed cleaned out. We actually had to knock a few walls down.
Wow.
Needed quite a bit of renovation, and most of the physical structure stuff that you see here, I can't take credit for. I got to give the credit to Jamie, my partner. He's the handyman. He's the guy that knows how to put beams up and do plumbing and HVAC and replace the floors.
Man.
If I'm responsible for anything here, it's all the junk that you see up on the walls.
Wait, that adds that adds so much ambiance. Like you got the deer head, you got the all the boxing tributes, you got the Youngstown, like the rooms, the politician room. Yeah, no, that totally. But yeah, you guys are definitely. So let's walk people a little bit through what you guys have here. So it's not just a house where you sit in a chair in a circle and smoke. You do have that as a public forum downstairs. You could come in, buy a cigar, chat with whoever's there, and just kind of have just kind of hang out. Mm-hmm. But then upstairs you have a theater room, you have a politician room, a card or like a gaming room, and then what do you call this room that we're in here?
TV room.
The TV room. Okay, so you're constantly playing some of the old movies, which I love, and it's so easy to get sucked into them.
So I'll tell you the theme of the place if there's any kind of like a central theme. So my partner Jamie has an office in downtown Youngstown, and he converted it into a speakeasy. And not a business. It's not it was never open to the public. It's just his little man cave, and
how fun.
And it's little. It's only about the size of this room that we're sitting in actually.
Wow.
And it's downtown. So when there was an event downtown on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, that was a good place for Jamie to call his friends and bring them down and smoke a cigar and have a cocktail.
Okay.
And so there's room for about maybe 10 or 12 people to sit in there. Probably 7 or 8 comfortably, 8 or 10 it starts to get a little bit crowded. 15,
wow,
it's jam packed, and we've had 40 people in there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but it's small, and it wasn't a business, and people would come in, and it looked like like our place here in Hubbard looks.
Okay.
You know, we had all this cool stuff hanging up on the walls.
Architectural salvage.
Just there was actually an old bank vault that he converted into a bar.
Oh, how cool! Okay.
He built a humidor. There's a lot of steel mill memorabilia because it's Youngstown, downtown Youngstown. A lot of political history, a lot of history of the downtown, and so people have been coming in there. And I think probably about 2012 or 13 is when that place officially opened, if you want to. I'm putting air quotes on open because it wasn't really a business, but probably invited the first guests in around 2012.
Okay.
And in the 8 or 10 years after that, people would come in and they'd say, this is one of the neatest places in Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
Why don't you do this as a business? Well, it was too small to do as a business, and that was really what got us thinking about trying to find a place like this place here in Hubbard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So does he still have that place down there, the man cave?
He does, but we don't
You don't really
hang around down there very often. Now, if something's going on in Youngstown, he'll go down there and open it up, and we'll hang out there.
Yeah.
It's a good place. Like if you're going to a concert,
absolutely,
or we're going to go to dinner downtown.
Yeah,
it's a nice place to have a smoke after the meal,
right?
Or after the concert, or before the concert, or before a YSU football game, or any of those things that you do in the downtown.
Yeah.
But because we're here in Hubbard so much, we really haven't been spending much time down there.
Right.
And a lot of the people who used to go there come here now.
Right, exactly. That's really cool. So let's talk about, you kind of touched on it when you were talking about traveling and getting to know and meeting people all over the United States because of the cigar thing, because there is something very social about a cigar lounge, right? So, I've been into a couple, and this is by far the most social that I've seen. There are some where people just come and mind their own business, say hi to each other, and then they're reading the paper or something. This seems to be the way you guys have set it up. There's always conversation, and sometimes just the conversation I overhear is incredible. But the people I've met at like the different events, and we're going to get to some events that the public is actually invited to, whether you're a smoker or non-smoker. But okay, so let's talk about the social aspect. Somebody mentioned that the smoking of cigars is a little bit more social because it takes you so long it slows you down.
Yeah, there's a ritual.
Experience. Like, have you met any of your friends, like current friends at cigar shops around the nation, or like, tell us about the social aspect.
Yeah, there's no enemies in a cigar place. It's kind of like I equate it to, bars are a little bit different because there's alcohol involved.
Yeah.
And I think about like bars in the 1940s when your grandfather went to the bar after work, and he had a little circle of friends that he would meet, and they'd talk and have a shot and a beer before they went home.
Right.
And you could bring your kids, and the bartender give them
if you were lucky, that's all it was, a shot and a beer.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times that was all it was. There some people handled it responsibly, but it's to me it's kind of like that. It's like that world, because everybody's friendly. People talk about, religion and politics.
Yeah,
and
all the things that...
The Cleveland Browns are playing the Steelers, and nobody gets in a fight. There's no subject that's too taboo. Everybody has these great conversations and solves all the world's problems, and it's a very social thing. And you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you touched on that. I think the ritual of smoking a cigar, it isn't like just, run a lighter under the cigar, and now it's lit. Now we're going to power through this thing and smoke it in 5 minutes and go back in and go to work.
Right.
It's a process. You cut the cigar a certain way. You select the cigar you want to smoke a certain way. You light it a certain way. And how you rest it on the ashtray. How you smoke it, whether you smoke
really how
quickly,
you rest it on the ashtray.
Even something as simple as how you rest it on the ashtray is important. So that process kind of forces you to slow down and appreciate the ritual. Another great analogy that I always like to make is, we're a Mr. Coffee machine, the coffee machine that you make your coffee in the morning, the Keurig or the Mr. Coffee 10 or 20 years ago.
Okay.
And the way my grandparents made coffee, where they tamped down the espresso.
Oh my goodness!
And
I had a friend who did that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful process, and quite frankly, the coffee tastes better, right?
It does.
It makes a difference, and the ritual makes you appreciate the coffee more. So,
wow.
I think the same thing happens with cigars. People talk a lot about what they pair their cigars with. Some people like to have a cup of coffee. Some people like to have sparkling water.
Yeah.
Some people like to have a certain kind of wine. Some people like to have rum or a mixed drink, or, on and on. The possibilities are endless. And there's even food that you can pair with it, like eating a piece of chocolate before you smoke a cigar changes that whole experience.
That's, you know what? Okay, so I was a coffee master at Starbucks Coffee. And I actually gave talks about how if you, like certain coffees brought out, like if you would have it with chocolate or peanut butter or fruit, it's incredible. So I guess I never realized that about cigars, but I could see that because that's how coffee is.
Yeah,
and literally you don't understand it until you try it together. And it used to be one of my favorite parts. I would do these coffee tastings and I would have them try the coffee and they'd say, okay, whatever. And I said, now eat this and then try the coffee. And whoa, like it's all the subtleties. So that makes sense because you guys literally have hundreds, right? How many different cigar types do you guys have here?
Hundreds is probably an exaggeration, but over 100.
Over 100.
Over 100.
Okay.
Yeah, there's over 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to talk about the one that is exclusive to Cigarro.
Yeah. We would love to talk about it.
Okay, do you want to talk? Do you want to? Okay, but I'm not over the social aspect.
Well, let me something else about that I think is very important about the social aspect. So you mentioned the coffee, and that whole pairing thing. And when you see people sitting here and they're having a cigar and they're enjoying a drink or they're having a cup of coffee with it, that's an important aspect to that.
Right.
Part of the whole process is, do you do this after you eat? Do you do this? Like there's people that only like to have cigars on Sunday morning.
Really?
And they read the New York Times, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy a smoke. And then there's people that want to have a cigar after a meal. There's people that want to have a cigar before a meal. So there's definitely some kind of a aspect of how you pair it, and also the social aspect.
Interesting.
That comes into it. And on the coffee, because my absolute favorite, everybody talks about, I'm going to have bourbon or I'm going to have rum, or there's even a movement where people drink Dr. Pepper.
Ew,
and
really?
Pair it with, I never got it, but and not Coke, not root beer.
It has to be Dr. Pepper.
It has to be Dr. Pepper, yeah.
What?
And if you Google it, there's like a group of people that follow that.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it does change the taste. I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I don't like cold things with my cigar as much as I do coffee.
I feel like I would have a headache the next morning. Ugh.
Yeah. A lot of sugar and a lot of caffeine. But the coffee. One other thing I was going to tell you about the coffee. So the coffee grows in the same places that tobacco grows.
Oh,
right. Central America, the
Okay.
Caribbean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Ecuador, places like that.
Okay.
And there's a saying in the cigar world and presumably in the coffee world, if it grows together, it goes together. And my absolute favorite, everybody talks about bourbon and rum, and my absolute favorite experience is a cup of coffee and a cigar.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I tend to do that earlier in the day because I don't like having coffee at 9 o'clock at night.
Right. Oh, wow. So there is so much. The way you just walked us through that is really cool.
Yeah.
How each person has their own experience with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's really cool. So, okay, let's touch on this. So we know that coffee is addicting. I am guilty. We know that smoking cigarettes is addicting.
Yep.
So is smoking cigars considered addicting? Other than, I know there's the emotional aspect but does it, because it's tobacco, right?
Yeah, it's tobacco, and there's definitely some nicotine in it.
Yeah.
Nicotine is what you become addicted to.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if I want to do this with my respiratory therapy hat on or my cigar hat. And I like my cigar hat better at this point in my life. Yeah. So I'll tell you, and I'm not
Okay,
trying to
okay.
talk anybody into developing a bad habit, but so two things I'll say about cigars.
Okay.
Number one, if you're doing it right, you don't inhale.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
when you smoke a cigarette,
Yeah.
you inhale.
Okay.
And you inhale, and all that tar and nicotine goes into your lungs, and it goes across the alveoli. Since I got my respiratory
Yes,
therapy
yes.
hat on, right?
Yes, explain
goes
it to
across
us.
the
Explain it,
it
yeah.
goes across the alveoli, and it goes
Okay.
into your bloodstream, and people get
Oh.
COPD, and they get emphysema, and they get chronic bronchitis, and they get lung cancer, and
Because they inhale it.
a lot of it is because it's inhaled. Now, I'm not saying cigars are good for you.
Right, right, right.
Because you need to control how many you have. You need
Okay.
to, everything in moderation, that kind of a thing. But
Right.
the point number two about the cigars, the thing that I always say with myself,
Right.
I have high blood pressure.
Okay.
And when I smoke a cigar, my blood pressure goes down and I relax. It's like yoga or meditation
Oh, yeah.
for me.
Okay.
So, if I'm doing if there's anything bad about the cigar,
Yeah.
it's also relaxing me. And that relaxation is very important, and it's very healthy.
And that is a good point, because stress is the number one killer. You could talk. I mean, you're in the medical profession. Stress causes brain aneurysms, causes high blood pressure, causes heart attacks. I mean, craziness. So
Yeah.
that is a good point.
Not
Again,
ready to
it's-
say it's good for you, but
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But as opposed to if it, yeah, that's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like
everything
my brain
in
is going
moderation.
fast. Yeah, yeah.
Like, so my life really changed when we started this place, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I was exposed to. I always had a humidor at home,
Okay.
and I got a pretty understanding wife, but there's no cigar smoking in my house.
Right,
So in the winter, I'm either I have to do that stuff on the road,
Right.
because I'm not going to sit outside in
So now
20
you
below
have a
zero.
place.
So now I have a place. And so when we opened this place, actually before we opened the place, when we were working on it, we had the humidor, and we started putting cigars in there, and I found myself smoking more and more and more. I wasn't really addicted to it. It wasn't a
Right.
physical addiction, but it was convenient and easy,
Yes,
and
of course.
peer
And-
pressure and all that kind of stuff.
Right, and you're not ready to leave after. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I have just so enjoyed the conversation that I'll stay for like way longer than I thought I would,
Yeah.
because just that whole ambiance and vibrance and conversation. So let's talk about some of the events that you've had here. And then some of the guys, there is an event. If you're listening to this week, there's an event coming up on this Saturday, which is September. Let's see, today's the 13th, 14th, 16th.
16th, Saturday, September
yes.
16th. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks
Okay.
for doing the math.
All right. So, but as far as like some of the past events, you guys really want this to be like a social, engaged, group of people, and you've really made it that way. You've had a chili cook-off.
Yeah.
You did a surprise party for Donnie Iris and Boom Boom Mancini,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
That was cool. That was on the news. There was a fundraiser. Was there a fundraiser?
So we've done quite a few things.
Okay.
When we started the place, the concept here is it's a house.
Yeah.
And the first floor is kind of like Starbucks. You can walk
Yeah.
in and you can buy cigars. You could buy them and go, or you could buy them and sit down. There's
and
a
they
beautiful.
do have an espresso machine down there, guys. So
Yeah. There's coffee. So there's a beautiful place to sit down there. There's a fireplace. There's always music on in the background. It's usually like some kind of Rat Pack, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and that's by design.
Yeah.
By the way, that isn't just we happen to have it on,
Right.
channel such and such. It's really we try to curate the mood.
Yes.
With the music. So
Okay.
and same thing with the TV behind my back here. We have a big TV up on the second floor in our membership area. And the TV, we always start out, of course, people put sporting events or whatever they want on later in the day. But when we turn it on, it always starts out with something like Turner Classic Movies.
Right.
Because we're going for that speakeasy 1930s to 1950s vibe. The time
Very
that we
cool.
thought was the coolest time in
Yeah. And
in the 20th century.
Right.
And so we
Oh.
have all the, the radio that we have an old radio from the 1930s. And, and we that's the vibe that we're trying to get.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the first floor, it's a public area and anybody can come in. You're more than welcome. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to pay anything. You
Right.
just come in and buy buy a cigar and sit down and have a good time. You can, there's chairs, they're clustered around in little, groups of 4 or 6, or, sometimes people bring in a big party and they move the chairs around. It's just,
and the cool thing is if you come in by yourself and you see somebody, like I've seen so many times, and I've been kind of invited into groups that are already there.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, well, those are those people and those are, it's kind of like if there's an empty seat, you're somewhat invited to just jump in and enjoy the conversation or fill it generally.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously,
absolutely,
I've seen that happen a lot where people just walk in and take an empty seat. And that's, I don't know, for some reason I find that very cool because I used to say I'm going to start a coffee shop one day called The Empty Chair. And basically, if you go in and you're open for invitation, now everybody's going to have this idea, so somebody may do it. But basically, if you go in and you're open to conversation or somebody joining you, you leave the chairs up at the table. If you're there to just work and you don't really want anybody to join, you just move the chairs off to the chair section. And then that's kind of symbolizing, hey, this is just me and I'm here to work. But if you're there and you're open to any kind of social engagement, you let the chair, you pull up a chair, and that way somebody else comes in to have a coffee and they're like, I'll sit and have a conversation
with somebody. Yeah.
Because we as adults sometimes get so stuck and we forget how to connect, or we don't forget how to connect, but somebody else does, and they make it's easy to feel awkward.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
And you just can't read people's minds sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So if nobody ever does that when I am independently wealthy.
I think somebody already did.
What?
Not coffee though. So I worked up in New York City a couple months ago, and there actually there's a restaurant up there that's like that. It's kind of like a almost like a bistro, Whole Foods kind of a place. And they have a big table in the middle. Yeah. And then they have little tables scattered around. And if you go in and you sit at the little table, you're by yourself. But if you go in and you sit at the big table, people just kind of like gather and talk. Yeah.
Did you go? Did you eat there?
I absolutely did. And I was by myself, and I ended up sitting and talking with somebody else that came in by themselves.
I love it. I love it. Wow. That's really cool. That's I think that we could use more of that.
They don't have a patent on it, so you could still do that with it.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I'll be like, hey, I've been talking about this idea for 10 years. So, okay. So let's talk about this exclusive cigar that Cigar offers. Yeah. And I'm going to, as you're starting to tell me, I'm going to grab my coffee real quick that I brewed.
Sure.
I'll be right back. But guys, I'm not walking far. I'm walking like 5 steps over.
Okay, yeah, I can talk.
Talk to us about this amazing cigar. That's somebody. I was just walking in here, and somebody stopped Steve and said, "Hey, my son loves these cigars that you guys have, and we want a box." So this is the cigar we're about to tell you about.
Yeah. So a very good friend of ours who goes down to Florida, travels a lot, came and brought Jamie and I some sample cigars. And that happens to us all the time. People bring in cigars, and we sure appreciate everybody that does that. And I have to admit that I'm a little bit opinionated. I have very strong opinions about the kind of cigars that I like. I'm very open-minded about other people's cigars, but I'm pretty satisfied with my palate, and I know what I like, that kind of a thing.
Right.
So anyway, this guy brought in a couple cigars, and they're wrapped in newspaper. And I'd never seen that before. I mean, I've seen cigars that are not wrapped in cellophane. Okay. But I've never seen one that's wrapped in newspaper like that. When I say wrapped in newspaper, I don't mean you smoke the newspaper. I mean instead of that little cellophane sleeve that you see.
When I first saw them, I thought people smoked
just
the newspaper.
Literally,
I was like, that doesn't. Okay.
Yeah. So there's probably something poison in the newspaper, but we wouldn't recommend
it's
that.
It's kind of like shrooms, right?
We wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
You get high before you die.
All the news that's fit to smoke, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he brings in the cigars, and Jamie and I unwrap them, and of course we're going to be nice and friendly and sociable, and we're gonna light these things up. But I don't have a great expectation about them. And Jamie's the same way I am. He's been smoking cigars for a long time. He's very opinionated. So we light these cigars up, and we looked at each other. Wow. And I mean, they're just didn't have to say a word. We just kind of like locked eyes, like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And we turned to the guy that brought these and said, who where did you get these?
Right.
I need
I bet
more.
he was waiting for that reaction
I
too.
need more.
Yeah.
And he said, they're pretty good, aren't they? And I said, I'm going to say that, I think at the time I said it was in my top 10.
Okay.
And that was after 3 minutes.
Wow.
So we smoked the whole thing because, when you smoke a cigar, for those that don't smoke cigars, the cigar changes as you smoke it. There's the first third, the middle third, and the last third.
Really?
And there's cigars that are, famously very good when you light them, but you end up throwing half of it away because when it gets to the halfway point, it's no good anymore.
Oh, weird.
So this thing, we smoked the whole thing, and it was good to the last drop, as they say in the coffee world, right?
Right.
And so we finished smoking them, and by the time we finished smoking them, he had told us the story about this guy. There's a Cuban guy down in Florida, and he has a little cigar store of his own.
Yeah.
He doesn't distribute these things. He doesn't sell mail order. He doesn't, he's not interested in getting hooked up and becoming nationwide or anything like that. He just rolls them and, does a nice job. And he's got rollers. It isn't just him. He's got a couple people working for him that roll. And so we started talking to him, and he's Hispanic, and Jamie speaks Spanish very well.
Yes.
So Jamie and him started talking by Zoom or one of those, FaceTime.
Okay.
And they started talking, and, we kind of like struck up a friendship with him, and he sent us some samples. And we said, we'd really like to carry these. We'd like to make this our house cigar.
Wow.
Can you keep up? And he said, I can keep up. And so, we made an arrangement with him, and he's not interested in selling them to anybody else.
That's incredible.
He can keep up with us, but he has them in his store.
Yeah, yeah.
But, as far as like going outside of that community, he's pretty good with what he's got, you know.
Yeah.
And he's just a proud artisan who knows he makes a pretty good product. He doesn't need to, he doesn't need to go public or, become a, worldwide distributor or anything like that. So we're just blessed because we literally got hooked up with them, and we're the only place outside of his little store in Florida where you can get those. And so, we buy there's 2 sizes.
Okay.
La Bomba means little bomb, and that's like a Toro-sized cigar. It's a little, I don't know I don't know the measurement off the top of my head, but it's one of those stubby little cigars that you see. And then there's the Churchill, which is the more classic, one of these. They're called Churchill size because it's the cigar that you always saw Churchill smoking. Yeah, the big long one.
Okay, right.
And so he does those 2 sizes. And he does a mild, well, I shouldn't say mild. He does a kind of a Connecticut or shade, which is generally thought to be more mild.
Got it.
And then he does a Maduro, which is darker. And I shy away from using the word strong, but it's a more, it's like in the coffee world, it's espresso.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So he does the 2 sizes of each of those 2 kinds. And then he does a really long one that he rolls just for us.
Oh, wow.
Which is a really bizarre. It's like 2 Churchills.
Yeah, I've seen those long ones.
Yeah, and we actually found out that that's a thing, and we carry. Michael Jordan commissioned somebody to make those, and they're fabulously expensive. They're really good, but they're fabulously expensive.
Wow.
And we told him about it.
Yeah.
And so he started playing around, and he made us some of his cigars
version of it
in that size.
Wow.
And they're half the price.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
these cigars those have been a real hit.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So those, but I still think the Churchill and the La Bomba are really like our.
I like the
those
name
are
La
big,
Bomba.
Yeah,
La
little
Bomba.
bomb, bomb. Yeah. So we we started carrying them, and everybody we gave one to wanted more.
Wow.
And so they're one of our best sellers.
Yeah.
And we sometimes have trouble keeping them in stock. He does keep up with us, but it's like we have 100 in there. And I'm thinking it's about time for me to start thinking about ordering, and then somebody comes in and buys them out.
Wow.
So we do run out of those.
Yeah.
And so funny story about those, that we call them, the name of them, we call them El Periodico, which literally means in Spanish, the newspaper.
That is so funny. Now, is that
that's
a
us.
nickname
That's
that you
not
guys
him.
gave him? Okay,
that's
okay,
us. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, they're
So
very
we called him up and said, what do you call these? And he says cigars. And we said, you don't have a name, you don't have a band, you don't have you don't have branding, and
it's just
And he says no. He says I'm a cigar roller. He said I'm not a marketing guy.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I know everything in America is marketing. You have to. So it's kind of refreshing to see somebody who just loves what they do. They do it well, and it is what it is. Like I love that. That's amazing.
So I'd encourage everybody that comes in. We do when they come in, but for anybody out there listening, stop by and have one.
Yeah, or even guys, Father's Day, birthdays for people like bosses who you don't know what to buy them. I mean, there's people who just friends of mine who just have everything. I really have to get creative to find things that they would like. So that's definitely something I'll have to keep in mind.
They're not getting them anywhere else.
Yeah.
They're literally not getting them anywhere else.
Definitely. Now, what if somebody's listening and they're not from our area to come in? They're out of luck. They got to come. They got to come by.
You got to come. So we're actually looking at expanding into mail order someday, but we're not there yet. And there's kind of like legal and accounting hurdles that you have to go through. So we can't really promise anybody anything, as far as that goes.
Right. Okay. So talk to us about the event coming up this Saturday.
Okay. So to go back, the first floor is retail store.
Yes.
Like a Starbucks we started talking about. And then you come upstairs and there's a whole nother world,
Yeah.
And this is the area where there's membership. And so people can come in here and they become a member, and you can become a member for a year, or you can buy a day pass if you just want to come up and watch the football game, or it's a beautiful day, you want to sit on the deck.
Yeah.
And you can't get to the deck from the first floor, so you have to you buy a day pass. So what we figured out really early on, in our business planning, even before we opened up, was if we're gonna charge people for that privilege, we're gonna have to give them something,
Okay.
So they get a discount on cigars.
Okay.
And we have events for them.
Nice.
And the events have kind of like morphed. They've taken on a life of their own because we just enjoy them so much.
Right.
And so we have, we'll have a cigar rep come in.
Okay.
And do a tasting of his product.
Okay.
And sometimes we do it in the public area, but sometimes we do it in the membership area.
Yeah.
Only for our members. Sometimes we have events where they're free and open to anybody.
Okay.
Sometimes they're only free and open for the members.
Got it.
Sometimes we charge everybody, but the members get a discount. It just depends on the nature of the event.
Right.
And
they could find out about those on your Facebook and website?
Facebook and website, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Facebook is, a little faster.
Right, because you're able to update it right away.
Yeah, we're updating it on the spot. But if you follow us on Facebook, you'll see what we're doing.
Okay.
We've had you alluded to a lot of the we had a beautiful Christmas party. We had we had the Donnie Iris birthday party.
Yes,
so Donnie
that was
Iris,
fun.
rock star from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Still rocking, by the way. 80 years old. And
you know what? We really got to. It was cool because I got to take a picture with him and meet him here. And then he was supposed to perform down at the REO Speedwagon concert, and he wasn't able to because of health issues. And so it really hit me that I really got to meet this guy towards the tail end of probably a lot of his publicity, outings or whatever, at least for now.
Yeah, we're still in contact with him.
Are
he's
you?
still he's doing good, and he's looking forward to getting back on the road.
Oh, really?
He's the Energizer Bunny.
Energizer
Bunny.
Wow.
But we have some mutual friends, and he's they actually mentioned that he liked cigars, and so we brought him up here, or they brought him up here, and introduced us, and he came to a couple events, and we had a really good time, and he's just a real down-to-earth guy, and he loves cigars, and he knows a lot about them, and he loves our house cigars, our El Periodicos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
So he's we kind of got him hooked.
That's so good. And then Boom Boom Mancini, and then we did the unveiling of these humidors, which you made a party out of.
Yeah.
So that was fun too.
Yeah, made a party out of that's the operative word there. So we're all, because we're trying to entertain our members and keep them engaged and make sure there's a community here. So we have there's actually four of them. They're the Monte Cristo, American Heritage Series, and they made 500 White House humidors, 500 Lincoln Memorial, 500 Jefferson Memorial, and 500 U.S. Capitol.
Yeah.
And they made them in the 80s, early 80s, I think.
Oh, wow.
And they, limited edition. They were never for sale. They went to the top dealers for Monte Cristo cigars in America.
Wow.
And, a lot of them got destroyed. They're kind of fragile.
Right. Okay.
A lot of them got given away. Okay. A lot of them got thrown up in somebody's attic.
Right.
And so here we are, 30, 40 years later.
Right.
And I one day went to a cigar buddy's house, and we had dinner together at his house. And after dinner, he says, "You want a cigar?" And we went into his smoking room to get a cigar. And he opens up, he's got the White House. And, these things are beautiful. They're like a piece of art.
Oh, for sure.
And he opens it up and he says, "Go ahead, take a cigar." And I said, "Holy moly, close that. Let me see that again." Wow. And I said, "Where did you get that humidor?" And he said, "Forget it. They're rare. They only made 500 of them." He said, I looked for 10 years for this one. You're never going to have one. That was about 8 years ago, and I have all 4 of them. He's only got the White House. I've got all 4 of them.
Has he been here to see them?
He's not been here. He's from another part of the state.
Okay.
But I send him pictures and I always rub it in. So you said you're always looking for an excuse for a party. Right?
Yeah.
So we got the humidor, and when we give a tour of the building here, we always point out the humidors.
Okay.
And point them out and say these were Monte Cristo, and there's only so many of these made. And so when I got the 4th one, which was the Jefferson Memorial, a couple of the members suggested, you should unveil it. It's like a piece of art.
Yeah.
And not that we're so. I mean, we're proud that we have them.
Right.
I don't want to be pompous or anything, but I'm looking for an excuse. So we put a drape over it.
Yeah.
We had a party, and we raffled. Like everybody who came to the party, the members were free.
Yeah.
Non-members, I don't remember how much it was, but when you came in, you got a ticket, and the door prize was some Monte Cristo cigars.
Nice.
And I talked about the history of the American Heritage humidors.
Right.
Talked about the history of the Monte Cristo cigars, which is a very, very iconic
And
name.
I want to say that was my first event here. That's because a friend of mine is a member here, and he was just so excited. I mean, this guy's pretty laid back. Generally, he's professional at what he does, and he's just, pretty chill. But man, when he was talking about this new cigar shop he was part of, he just came alive.
Yeah,
came alive. Yeah. Right. So he invited me to that. I want to say that that's the first event that I actually came to at Cigar. Now look, here we are.
I'm so glad he brought you. Yeah, I remember us talking. We were sitting right in that. I'm pointing at the room. Yeah, sitting in that room when my wife was here. That was the night of Donnie Iris, wasn't it?
That night, yes, Donnie Iris and Boom Boom. Yeah. Because Jackie from the Vindies was here, and then there are so many people that I met. I now consider friends that I've met or here. Yeah. It's so funny.
So we're always looking for an excuse for a party. And then, you talk about the members and the friendships and the social aspect of it. And I'll tell you something that literally brought tears to my eyes when I heard it the first time. Okay. So a couple of our members, I'm not going to name names or anything, but a couple of our members have become friends. Yeah. And it's 2 couples. And they actually went on vacation together.
No way.
And they sent me a picture from their vacation and said, this friendship is because of you.
Wow.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Oh,
Isn't
that come on. That is right up the alley
on
of Youngstown Click.
Cigars, right?
Which, yes. Which Youngstown Click is all about the connection and community. And so when you say that, I get that at the core of my being. Yes, because had everybody who does something that is in their heart to do, it's so much bigger than what they immediately think it is. Mm-hmm, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And without that, there's disconnection. I mean, imagine if everybody stepped up to do what they are passionate about or called to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm, look at this, because my friend was passionate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so life becomes boring and dull and drab when people start falling off of that. And they find reasons, or they get too busy, or they get too selfish, or whatever. But when there's people who are just doing what they love, then other people are affected, and you can't help it. It's just the way, it's the beauty of life, you know?
You know, you hit the nail on the head. So when we were doing our business planning, which, you know, it was pretty, you know, fairly formal. I mean, we didn't just jump into this.
Right,
But,
okay.
but on the other hand, we were very passionate about
Right.
cigars. So there was a lot of emotion
Yes.
that came into it. And it
Yes.
wasn't all just a spreadsheet.
Right,
You know?
right.
So we're putting together the business plan, and, you know, cigars, the way you market them, and you know what you buy them, and you know you mark them up and you sell them, and you pay taxes, and you pay employees, and you buy a building,
Oh,
and
my goodness.
you renovate a building, and you buy cigar store Indians and deer heads and humidors and all this
Right.
junk you see up on the walls, right?
Right.
And it's definitely not a route to getting rich.
Oh,
you know?
my goodness.
But we consistently kept saying to each other when we did the business plan, you know, here's what we're projecting we could make.
Okay.
If it pays the salaries, if it pays for the building,
Yeah.
if it pays for the cigars, if it pays for all those fun events
Yeah.
that we have, if it pays for all of that,
Yeah.
and we're not underwater, we're pretty happy.
Wow.
This isn't my retirement
Right.
financial plan.
Investment, right.
This is my retirement time management plan.
Right,
You know,
right.
so I need a place to hang out.
Yeah.
and there's a value that comes with that.
Right. So speaking of that, now a lot of people probably recognize the name DeGenaro because
Mm-hmm.
you've been in the community a long time. So in the event, they're like, his name, that sounds really familiar. Go ahead and tell us why DeGenaro would sound familiar.
Let's see. So I'm pretty obscure. You know, I haven't worked locally in years.
Right.
You know, I work out of town for a reason, right?
You're big stuff. What are you getting?
So before I had this, I have a medical oxygen business, which
Yeah.
is kind of like nationwide.
Yeah,
It's
wow.
we do have a location here,
Yeah.
but it's nationwide, and we don't really sell any more here.
Right. You
I
don't
sell
have it like
more
a
I sell more in
store.
Miami and Detroit and Chicago than I do in
Wow.
Youngstown
Okay.
and Warren. So, but my wife was a judge here for many years. She was
Okay.
on the
Yeah.
Court of Appeals. She was a judge from. I'm probably going to get these years wrong. It seems like
I
she was
know,
a judge
time
for
flies.
80 years, but I think she was a judge for 18 years.
Okay,
So
okay.
she became a judge in 2000, I think.
Yeah.
99 or 2000. And she was on the Court of Appeals, which sits in Youngstown, but it's 8 counties.
Wow.
And she was on that court until about 2016 or so.
Wow.
And then she got appointed. You know, they wanted her to run for the state Supreme Court.
Okay.
The appeals court kind of works like the Supreme Court, so that's kind of like the farm team for
Okay.
a lot of the, not all, but a lot
Got
of the
it.
people that are on the Supreme Court come from appeals courts.
Oh.
So they were kind of grooming her and talking to her about.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I thought that was a good idea, and I said I'm not even going to presume to peer into your world and tell you what to do. You know, you do. I'll support you no matter what. So Kasich, when he was governor, appointed
Yeah.
her to the Supreme Court.
Wow.
So she was on the Ohio Supreme Court for, I don't know, about 2 years,
Wow.
maybe less. And she ran in 2018, and she didn't make it.
Got it.
So she's talking about running again next year for the Court of
Wow.
Appeals. But
Okay.
since 2018, she was very good friends with the auditor of state, and so she works as the legal counsel for
Okay.
our auditor of state. So she's still in
Oh,
government
nice.
service.
She's still, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a chance to sit down and have a conversation or two with her, and she knows her stuff, and she's
Yeah.
very passionate about the appeals process and the legal process. I asked her what she would be what a message that she would like to give to everybody was, and she said, jury duty. It's your
Wow.
responsibility. It's your right. It's and it was just fascinating talking to her. Raised my appreciation for sometimes like the things that seem so monotonous. That she enjoys the cases of seeing the appeals and trying to make sure that the right thing is done. And so just having a conversation or two with her really.
We'll have to get her here with the headphones.
Right, yes. Talking about jury duty.
It turns out she likes to talk.
And she's a little quiet. Like at first, she'll sit there quiet unless she's asked. Like
Yeah,
I've noticed that. Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's generally how I've.
Yeah.
I don't really ask. I don't wait to be asked to talk. I just
Yeah, yeah,
talk.
yeah. Once you get started, though.
Um, well, that's when it's your life work. Life's
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
You can't help it. You can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So, okay, so are you now? Okay, real quick. Let's put on the. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's put on the respiratory therapist hat.
Okay.
At towards the end here. You've traveled quite a bit, right? So have you ever seen like, and I know it's not like you have the whole lock on everything, but as far as patterns go, right? Have you seen that there's certain, like you said, there's a lot more business in Miami and some of these different areas. What would you say? I guess medically, anytime I talk to a medical professional, I ask for like patterns or things that observations that they've seen. Do you have anything like that? If not, that's okay. But I love patterns. I love like
Medical.
I should have been a sociologist.
You're talking medical, not
or just well, okay, maybe not medical. Just you've traveled quite a bit, but like, do you see anything like like these people? Like Michigan could the water, and so somebody who maybe dealt with that. Are there parts of the country that seem to have more oxygen need because of the air quality or because of
there's definitely there's I see where you're getting. Yeah, so a couple different things. Number one, when you go to places like Scottsdale, Arizona, or anywhere in Florida or anywhere in Vegas, because they're a good place to retire. So if there's a retirement community, you got a lot more old people living in a place like Florida than you do in New York City.
Got it. Okay.
So just because of the demographics with the age, there's bigger health problems and therefore bigger need for hospitals and any kind of healthcare businesses in those places. And then the other thing is city as opposed to rural. So like in New York City, there's a lot more people on oxygen than
in the
rural upstate New York, even when you correct for the population.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
and
because of the air, because they have fresh air.
Yeah, and you think about like the lifestyle,
they're out
this
there
isn't
cutting wood.
not 100%,
right.
by any stretch, but if you live in upstate New York in a cabin on the lake versus I live in an apartment building with 6,000 other people in the Bronx.
Oh my goodness.
Just your life quality and it isn't just air quality, it's just how you live
right.
is going to be different.
That is true.
That's not an indictment on city living versus country living. And then the other thing is when you're in industrial places. When I started as a respiratory therapist in the early 80s, there was still a lot of like occupational lung disease here from the steel mills. Now it's probably not like that now because so many years have gone by and the mills have been closed for
for so long.
A 50-year-old's adult life, really.
Right.
But and even there were even when you get down a little bit south of Youngstown, like into like the beginnings of Appalachia, there was a lot of like black lung from coal mining.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and there's still to this day a little bit, but because of OSHA and the standards are a little bit different now, so it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be.
And I heard that they've come up with technology too that actually the way that coal, there's certain things that we hear about coal like we're still doing it like we did in the 50s. But really the way that they burn it off is they've made it real organic, so it goes back and I was
they're not crawling around in the
like
cave without a mask on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So there's that. And the only other thing I'll say about my travel, and it really isn't like a medical thing, but I learned to appreciate the like just what good. Not that people in other areas aren't good.
Yeah.
But there's just something about the Midwest and the people from the Midwest.
Love that.
And California coast and Hawaii and
Yeah.
Key West and Florida
Oh,
are beautiful, beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful places. But
Yeah.
when you go to some of these towns in Ohio and Michigan and Western
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and really the rest of the Midwest, and the people are just the absolute salt of the earth, the nicest, kindest, give you the shirt off their back kind of people that you could ever hope to experience.
Right.
And I developed an appreciation for living here, because when I was young, I used to think, there's got to be something more than
Right.
Youngstown, Ohio. It's a pretty good place to.
It
It's a pretty good
is.
place
It
to live.
is.
It was
Yes,
a great
yes.
place to raise my kids.
Right.
Neither of my sons live here.
Okay.
There's not a lot of opportunity for them, but
Right.
but it was a wonderful place for
Right.
them
And
to
I
be.
bet they enjoy coming home when they do.
I'll tell you, Debbie. We had a place out at Lake Milton.
Okay.
And it was a little bit too small. It was a condo, not a house. And my wife said, we downsized a little bit too early. We got to get a house. And we bought a house in Poland, which is where I raised my kids.
Okay.
And my kids, really, it kind of surprised me. They were absolutely thrilled that we were back in that community.
Oh.
Absolutely thrilled.
Wow.
And, a lot of the people that they went to high school with don't live here anymore,
Yeah.
just like them. They live all over the country,
Yeah.
and they have lives in other cities, but there's just something very familiar about coming home that they didn't experience when we were in Columbus, and they didn't
Wow.
experience even out at the lake, as nice as it was to be out there. There's just something about that community.
Wow.
And I kind of feel that way about Hubbard too. It's been very eye-opening to come back, and just the acceptance and welcome back, Steve, and we went to high school together, and
That's so cool.
I went to high school with guys on the safety director here, and somebody that's on Hubbard Council, and a couple people that own businesses that you could walk to from Cigar here,
Right.
and just guys that some that I have stayed in touch with, and some that I hadn't seen since high school, and it's like it was like we saw each other last week, just
Isn't
you run
that
into people, and
something?
we make jokes about how the other one got old, and
Right.
and
That is one thing that Main Street in Hubbard, I don't know the whole progression of it, but I got to say, there's really a great community feel in Hubbard.
it's a special place.
Yeah.
It's a special place, and it kind of, I hate to say it, but it trickles down. It's from the leadership in the community, because from the very beginning, I don't even think we had closed on the house. I think we were talking to her, and we were waiting to find out if she was going to accept our offer or not.
Yeah.
And I knew somebody on city council here, or town council, or whatever they call it. And I said to Jamie, let's go to the meeting. We'll just go to the meeting, and we'll hang out. We'll introduce ourselves afterwards. And I went up before the meeting, and I introduced Jamie, and we talked. And they said, would you like to say something to the meeting? And I said, well, sure. So so I got up. I mean, there were 15 people there. It wasn't like a huge forum or anything, but I got up and said that it's great to be back, and we can't wait to to get going. And to their credit, I mean, every single person there, if there's anything we can do for you, and not to get political or anything, but so there they are. We're a business in their town, and they're like, "What do you need from us to succeed?"
I just
because
got goosebumps.
we
That is so
we
important.
need you here.
Yes.
We need you employing people.
Yes.
We need a business in that house. What can we do to help?
And it wasn't like just their friends or their inner circle. This was, you guys were, even though you had grown up here, you were coming back in.
Yeah.
And that's really, there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah.
Just equal opportunity and saying, hey, we see that you're going to make this place better. That's a great credit to the Hubbard Council.
One of the coolest things, and it was right after we opened. Well, we opened on I think around July 1st last year.
Okay.
And so Veterans Day is in
November.
October or November? November, yeah. So Veterans Day was in November. So November last year, we decided we were going to we love our veterans.
Okay,
Talk about the big event afterwards. But,
Okay. Oh, yes.
So we love our veterans. So we said Veterans Day is coming up. What if we decided we wanted to feed the veterans? So we have a member here who does walleye charters, and he said, "I'm going to cook walleye for you."
Wow.
And he cooked, commercial levels of, 25, 30 pounds of walleye and brought it in. And we approached all the businesses on the street, the folks at the winery, the people up at a bunch of different restaurants, the people at the VFW. We talked to all of them. And as we're talking to them, we probably went to, I'm going to say 10 places.
Yeah.
And said, we're having a thing for the veterans. What can, you want to help?
Yeah.
I thought if we go to 10 places, we'll probably get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
We got 12.
Come on.
We got
really?
all 10 that I asked, plus 2 of them. 2 of them told other people that I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
And they all came through, and we had more
so
food down here.
beautiful.
We probably fed, I think we fed about 50 to 70 people, give or take.
Wow.
Plus our, some of our members came
Yes.
in, and then we had the food left over, and we took it up to the VFW. And they
I
ate
bet
off
they
of it the next
loved
day.
Of
and-
course.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about we'll end with this, guys.
Speaking
so
of veterans.
pay attention. Everybody pay attention, because this is an event that you are invited to here at Cigar.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So speaking of veterans, so we when we started the business, my partner was in the Army. A lot of our members, a couple of our employees were in the military. My grandfathers were in the military.
Wow.
Always had a special place in my heart. Always had a special place in Jamie's heart. So we, in the very beginning, as soon as we opened the doors, we said, you know what, we're going to get, when you start a business, everybody comes knocking, can you help out this cause or that cause? And we're going to really hone in on some specific cause. And we decided really early on that we wanted it to be about veterans.
Yeah.
And so thus the Veterans Day thing that we had last year. And we're going to do that again this year, by the way.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it turns out that one of our vendors, one of the cigar manufacturers, one of our favorite is J.C. Newman.
Okay.
And J.C. Newman makes the Brick House cigars, the Julius Caesar cigars, the Quorum cigars.
Wow.
Quest Array. They have a whole line.
Okay.
They're one of the last American cigar companies. They're in Ybor City, which is in Tampa, in Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they have an Ohio connection, in fact, because they were up in Cleveland in the. I'm not even going to try to guess the year, but they left.
They used to be in
They
Cleveland.
used to be in Cleveland. I think they were there until the 50s, give or take.
Okay.
And they went down to Florida.
Yeah.
And so they have a little bit of an Ohio history.
Yeah.
I think it's a 4th generation company. It's still a family run company.
Wow. Okay.
And their name is Newman. Their last name is Newman. So Bobby Newman, this is, when you say Bobby Newman in the cigar world, that's like saying Adolf Coors in the beer world.
Okay.
Or, he's kind of a rock star.
I never knew Coors' first name.
Yeah, Adolf Coors.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah. So, it's a big name. It's a big name. He's well known.
Okay.
He talks, for the industry a lot. He represents the industry very well. He's at cigar shows. Cigar guys know him. He comes to events around the country.
That's nice. Okay.
That kind of thing. So I bumped into him at some political events with my wife.
Okay.
Because of the Ohio connection.
Yeah.
And so we knew him. So he was in town before we opened, and we invited him to come over. And he actually came over and saw our humidor. And, gave Jamie some advice on it. And, oohed and awed.
That's amazing.
Said, this place is beautiful. And, this is great. And so we've always had a very special relationship with him. And with Newman, J.C. Newman specifically.
Okay.
Not to mention it's one of the best cigars. It really, all bias aside.
Okay.
It's really it's a superb cigar.
Oh man, nice,
all of them,
nice.
all their lines are really good.
Wow.
So, and they have a neat story. They have a cigar, for instance, called the American cigar.
Yeah.
Every single thing, the box, the band, the tobacco, the rolling.
Yeah.
Everything about it is made in America.
That's beautiful.
It's expensive because it's made in America, but everything about it is it's made in America.
Wow.
So it's kind of a cool story and an excellent, excellent cigar. So anyway,
what I feel like you should have? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
I feel like there needs to be like a gift, like a gifter's box where it's like somebody who wants to get a cigar lover a little box with all your picks. or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In a really cool little box or something that people could wrap and give.
Yeah.
Because as you're talking, I'm like, man, that one sounds good.
Well, it's funny.
And I'm not even a cigar person.
Yeah,
so
we do that kind of we do a virtual version of that on Facebook. Like
Okay.
I'll put like my, hey, here's a new cigar that I just smoked.
Okay.
Same thing with Jamie.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to do like a little box of the month or something.
My top 5
Yeah,
or something.
of the month, like each month or something like that.
I see what
like
you...
the box of the month, here, buy these picks of the month.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, more on that in a minute,
yeah.
because I actually, the cigar of the month thing is actually a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we got hooked up with JC Newman, and he sits on the board. We were talking about veterans when he was here, and he sits on the board of an organization called the Southeastern Guide Dogs.
Okay.
And it's guidedogs.org is their website. They're out of Palmetto, Florida, which is right near Tampa.
Okay.
And Bobby Newman is on their board.
Okay.
He's one of their board members. Now their mission is they cradle to grave raise dogs.
Aww.
Most of them are, I don't know if all of them, but most of them, all the ones that I've seen are either like Labradors or Golden Retrievers.
Okay.
And they're born there. They raise them. They train them.
Aww.
They pay for all their training, and they give them to a veteran who needs the dog.
Aww.
And they pay all the veterinarian bills for the dog for the life of the dog.
Wow.
They
and
provide all the food
for blind veterans.
Well, they're for blind veterans.
Okay.
They're for PTSD.
Wow.
They're for amputees. You name it. The only thing common is they're veterans. They're all veterans.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they even do them for Gold Star families. You know what Gold Star family is?
No.
Gold Star family's the family of somebody who got killed in the service of the. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I think they call it Gold Star because in World War II, maybe.
Yeah.
When your kid got killed in the war, they sent you a Gold Star to put in the window.
That's why. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, they do these dogs, and the dogs, when the dogs get old and they retire, I think the veteran can keep them and get another one as a service dog.
Okay.
Or they can turn it back in, and they have people who care for these dogs. And I mean, when I say care for them, they're rewarded for their life of service. They live on a cushion, figuratively. Figuratively.
Oh
but,
my goodness.
So and they have, their
How
campus
precious.
is beautiful. They have training facilities. They have dorms, because when the veteran goes down to get trained with the dog, it's a couple-week process.
Oh,
so it's obviously a very expensive undertaking.
Yeah.
And Bobby Newman kind of mentioned that to us and said, I have events down in Ybor in Tampa. You guys are more than welcome, to come down and, see them. So we started doing a little bit of research on that as a cause, and, just it caught us by our heartstrings, and it was veterans. They had us at veterans, and so we got involved. So we decided that we were going to go all in for that one group. So there's this group in Ohio called the Ohio Cigar Mafia.
Okay.
And don't let the word mafia throw you off. They're a wonderful, wonderful group of guys. A lot of philanthropic philosophy with them, and they want to do something and give back, and they just have a beautiful story. It's just a group of guys that they get together on Zoom and smoke cigars at night, and they have meetings around the state, and they have regional chapters, and
that's amazing.
So so this Ohio Cigar Mafia has done fundraisers before.
Okay.
For the Southeast Guide Dogs.
Okay.
So we went to a couple of those fundraisers and talked to the guys in the Ohio Cigar Mafia, and they said, "Well, do you know JC Newman? You know anybody at Newman?" And oh yeah, we know Bobby Newman pretty well. So our worlds kind of collided. And one thing led to another. So we're doing an event this Saturday, September 16. 16. You did the math. And it's from the doors open at 10, but it actually starts at 12, and it goes till 4. So it's a nice little, it isn't like a 9-hour thing.
Okay.
It's just a couple-hour commitment. I think just roughly check our Facebook, but roughly what we're doing is from about 12 to 1 is food. You're going to have food.
Yeah.
We're going to have tents set up in the back.
Okay.
And we're going to have a live auction.
Wow.
We're going to have Jay Basinger is doing the live auction. He's a professional auctioneer and a member here. And a pretty good cigar guy, a very good cigar friend of ours.
You guys might hear him on a future podcast.
Yeah, so Jay's going to be our auctioneer. He's going to be the live auctioneer. I'll give you the teaser of some of the things that we're auctioning off. Ooh. The live auction.
Okay.
There's a fire pit by, Greg Smith.
Oh, Ohio Flame?
Yeah.
Oh, guys.
So we have one of those fire pits sitting downstairs.
I saw that.
He said, don't let anybody walk off with it. And he laughed. And the reason he laughed is, did you try to walk off with that tonight?
Oh, my goodness. It's pretty heavy.
I think they weigh like 300 pounds.
Oh, my
I don't know how
goodness.
he got it in the house.
Yeah. Guys, I'm telling you, when I say they're quality made, they are definitely quality made. I want to say that this one says OSU on it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
That's beautiful. Okay.
So
wow, they're auctioning
that's one of the items. Another one of the items is it's called a Rabbit Air humidor.
Oh.
And Rabbit Air is it kind of looks like an apartment refrigerator. It's that size.
Okay.
And it's got window on the front, so you can open the door and you can close the door and see inside of it. I'm not going to guess the value. It'll be on our, it'll be in all the literature, but it's an expensive humidor.
Yeah.
We also have a humidor, a handcrafted wooden humidor, kind of a desktop humidor that Bobby Newman signed.
Oh,
so we have his
for
signature.
those cigar lovers, yes.
Yeah, there's his signature right on it.
Okay.
And then for bourbon drinkers, there's a bottle of, wait for it, Pappy Van Winkle bourbon, which is
I don't know what that
everybody else does. It's a big deal.
Oh,
it's a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Nice.
It's four. It's not 3 digits. It's 4 digits. It's it's $1,000 bottle of bourbon.
What?
Or more? Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
Oof.
it's special. It's special. And then we have some Opus X cigars. Those are a kind of a high end luxury cigar. They're like the Maserati of the cigar world.
Wow.
And then in addition to those,
Maserati of the cigar world. Okay.
In addition to those, there's a bunch of other boxes of cigars, gift certificates, just different bling they call it from the cigar manufacturers that they're going to be raffling and silent auctioning and all that kind of stuff.
That's amazing.
And the best thing is, and I think it's going to happen sometime around 1 or 1:30, after lunch before the auction, we have one of the veterans who actually works as an employee, but he's a dog recipient, is coming up from Florida with his wife and his dog. And he's bringing his dog, and he's going to do a demonstration, and he's going to talk about his personal experiences and also the experiences of some of the other veterans that have been here. And it's one of the most beautiful, and he is one of the most eloquent speakers I've ever heard in my life. I'm honored that he's coming up. My wife and I are going to have the privilege of going out to dinner with them on Friday night.
Man.
We're going to bring him over here Friday night to see the place, and then he's spending the night. I'm not going to say the hotel. I probably shouldn't do that. I don't know. Sounds like a confidentiality thing, but we had a very generous hotel guy here in town that donated a room for him and his wife for 2 nights. So he's going to be in town for a couple days, and he'll be here all day Saturday.
Oh.
And his talk is just unbelievable.
I can't wait to hear
that. Unbelievable.
I plan on there's are you familiar with Parto's golf course?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I was
a Hubbard
just
guy.
There. Yes,
Yeah.
I was just there, and they're doing something for their son, but it goes into the evening. So if you guys come here till 4, and then you could go there for music afterwards.
Right up the road.
Yeah, right up the street.
Literally right up the road.
Right up the road. Have a cigar.
Yeah.
Here and then they have music. A bunch of local musicians that are friends of theirs are donating their musicianship and stuff because of that day. But so when people want to come, then is there a charge for it? For everybody listening, if they're like, oh, that sounds like fun, is there basically you're going to be raising funds? You're going to be raising funds with the baskets and auction and everything. Right? How much are you thinking to try to raise? Do you have a goal?
We don't. So they're doing this simultaneously. They're also doing an event down in Huber Heights, Ohio, which is outside of Dayton.
Okay.
And the reason I don't want to say numbers is because we've as we've been advertising this thing, we've been saying, it's not a competition.
Got it. Yeah.
We might,
you just want it
you
right.
know, we might make a lot more. They might make a lot more. It's all about making money for the veterans.
Absolutely.
As far as the charge goes, we're going to make money on the auctions, obviously,
Yes.
and everything for the auction was donated, and so everything from the silent auction, and we're going to do a 50-50 raffle,
so beautiful.
and all the live auction and silent auction. That's all money in their pocket. Literally, we're going to give it to Sean, our veteran that's coming up there, and he's going to take it back to Florida.
That's amazing.
In addition to that, it's $25 at the door, and $25 donation gets you a cigar.
Okay.
It's going to be one of the J.C. Newman products because they're helping us sponsor it. You're going to get a door prize ticket and also non-alcoholic drinks, so like water bottles, that kind of thing. And then there's going to be food available for purchase from our beautiful neighbors over at Two Hot Mamas.
Okay.
And Nate at the winery.
So you walk over there to get them, or are they going to have it set up?
A little bit of
like
both. They're not. I don't know if they're going to be on our lot or their lot, but we're best friend neighbors. So they're gonna what they're gonna do is their menu is available. And but they're also going to do, I think, hamburgers and hot dogs and maybe sausage sandwiches outside.
Easy to get.
So if everybody, if there's, I don't know, 25 or 50 or 100 people, I hope here at noon, they're not going to get overrun with people.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have stuff on the grill, and that's you're going to pay for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the $25 gets you in.
Okay.
It gets you a door prize ticket. It gets you a cigar.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
and
awesome.
the money is going to
you're doing a good
Cigaros,
deal. That's pretty much
we're going to sell a few cigars
Plus
that day. There's no question, but all the money from this event is going back to Florida with the veteran.
Okay, that's amazing. Plus you get to come up and see the members only area. Right?
Absolutely, it's all open.
Everything will be open that day.
Yeah,
and
this is open to the public. It isn't just a members.
Perfect. Okay, so can you remind them real quick how they could connect to Cigaro, how they could follow for the events and everything?
Okay, so I'm going to give you all our information. So if you're like one of those old school guys that actually gets in your car and literally goes places.
Yes, because you're closed 2 days a week here too. So
yeah. So we're closed on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Okay.
Although we're available for events on those days.
Yes.
But
groomsmen, all that stuff.
Yeah. Fundraisers, meetings, anything.
Okay.
So we're at 230 North Main Street.
Okay.
Right next to Woodland Cellars Winery. Right across the road from St. Patrick's Church.
Okay.
Right on Main Street. Can't miss us.
Yeah.
We're a house, and we kind of share a parking lot. We have our own parking lot behind us, but if you look to the parking lot for the winery, that parking lot is right between us and the winery.
Perfect.
On the web, we're at www.cigaro with an S, Cigar Lounge. So cigarocigarlounge.com. And we're on Facebook. And we're Cigaro with an S on Facebook.
Nice. And it's a hand sketch of you and Jamie.
You can't miss us.
That's the picture.
Yeah, you can't miss us.
So that's
right?
if you guys are looking.
Yeah, which a beautiful picture that local artist Ron Moore did of Jamie and I from a photograph.
Nice.
I gave him a photograph, and I kind of surprised Jamie with that.
That's
and that picture, by the way, if you see it here,
Yeah.
or if you see it on our website or on the Facebook page, that picture is actually a photograph that a very good friend of ours who passed away, he died of COVID, took the summer before we bought this place. We were sitting in the yard back there at the winery. We were sitting back there, and Nate from the winery was trying to talk us into coming into Hubbard.
Okay.
And we were sitting back there, and Jamie and I are sitting in our lawn chair smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
And there's, 50 people at the winery. There's music that night, and everybody's sitting around. And we're kind of gazing over at the house because we had talked to this lady.
Right.
And so we're gazing over at the house. And what really caught Jamie's attention was that all these people at the winery were coming from, they weren't just coming from Hubbard. They were coming from Cortland and Mercer and Canfield and Boardman. And he said, boy, if they'd come here for that, they'd probably come here for cigars.
Right.
And we kind of looked at the house kind of wistfully and happily.
Somebody
and we had a smile.
that?
And somebody snapped a picture of it. So I gave that picture to Ron Moore, and he did the drawing. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
So let me tell you one other thing. I got
Yes,
2
yes,
minutes.
yes, yes.
So you mentioned the Cigar of the Month Club, right?
Yes, yes.
So here it is. It's me and Jamie.
Okay.
Right. So we just took on a partner. We have a young man.
Okay.
Because Jamie and I are of a certain age, right? We're old enough for
Right,
AARP,
okay.
right? We get the AARP discounts
No,
when we
I
go
would have never guessed.
when we go to hotels, right? So we have this beautiful young man. His name is Steve Danchis, and he's originally from the area. He lives out in the Akron area now, but he still has family here. And he's a very passionate cigar smoker. I know his dad.
Okay.
And so his father called me and said, hey, Steve's doing these cigars, and I see you're going to be in the cigar business. I should connect you with him, right?
Okay.
And because he's making his cigars, and you could sell his cigars for him. So I called him up, and he said, he doesn't understand. He said, I am making my cigars. He said, I made about 50 of them. He said, it's kind of like you make wine, and you got to. It's like you make your wine in the garage, and he says you're not trying to market it. He said I couldn't. You couldn't pay me enough for these things. It was like a prestige thing.
Right. Okay.
But in the meantime, we're friends, and you gotta come see my place.
Yeah.
So he comes over here, and he just fell in love with the place, and he says, it's always been my dream. I wanted to do this, and so one thing led to another, and he ended up actually buying into the business.
Okay.
Right? So he is, and now here's what's really cool about that. So Jamie and I, of a certain age, right?
Yes, yeah.
So we're the old dudes that like to sit around and smoke the cigars,
Right.
and we're very
Kind of the
opinionated.
glue
We're opinionated
yeah.
about our cigars. So now to go back to our beer analogy, we're Miller's High Life, and we're Pabst Blue Ribbon,
Right,
and we're
right.
maybe Yingling once in a while, right? But we're not, we're not young and hip.
IPAs
Not,
and all that.
So in the cigar world, the same thing that's going on in the beer world is going on.
Okay.
All these old companies like Monte Cristo and Davidoff and all these companies that have been around forever making cigars. They're beautiful, delicious cigars.
Yeah.
But there's this whole new breed of young, hip, cool.
Okay.
And you show them to us, and we look at the band, and the band's got some outrageous artwork on it instead of a Cuban tobacco leaf, and we're what is this, So Steve, our new partner, is much younger than us, and he's hip and he's cool, and he brings that youthful enthusiasm and that whole concept of those artisanal, for lack of a better word, the IPA cigars. The new wave of cigars. And so another thing that I'll kind of like brag on him, because he's the guy that connected us with him. So there's a club called Privada, Privada.
Okay.
Privada Cigar Club.
Okay.
Which is all these young guys, and they're like internet, guys.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful website, and they do all this like social media stuff and Instagram and TikTok and all that. Whatever. I don't even know what I'm talking about when I say that, but they do.
Wow.
So he's going to handle the Privada Cigar Club.
Wow.
And we're actually talking about starting some kind of a cigar of the month.
That's really cool.
Club
I love
for him.
it. Yeah.
He's also going to be integral in doing events. Like he's going to help a lot with events for our membership. So
that's amazing. That is
wow.
I
we'll have to get him on the.
How are you going to differentiate him? The Steve. Who's going to get the nickname?
Well, so he's in his 30s and I'm not, right?
Don't tell me no. You can't do like young Steve and old
so
Steve. You can't
we'll call him we'll call him old and young. Old and young.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I am so excited to have gotten this chance to sit down and talk with you. This conversation could have gone like if we were like to hit stop and then start all over again. We could talk about
till the sun comes up and go out to breakfast.
Right. So I'm so thankful that you had this time to sit and talk with us and just kind of explore a little bit about the cigar world and who you are. There's so many, like I said, so many other things. But guys, definitely Cigar Cigar Lounge. This is where they allow us to do our podcast out of. And every guest that I've had come here has loved it. It is such a great place. So make sure you check it out and find them online on Facebook. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, OhioFlame.com. Check them out. They believe in Youngstown Click, and they are local, and we love that. And so I yeah, this Saturday, make sure you come check it out. I want to tell you about DL. Have you heard about DLR Mustang Ranch? They pair wild Mustangs with veterans. When they heal them, they both get a chance to heal and stuff. That's what made me think about like just that bond between animal and veteran, and just watching it happen or getting to see the stories of it happening. I can't think of a better cause. Well, there's a lot of great causes, but this is definitely one that. So this Saturday, September 16th.
Look them up online too, because they're if you look up Southeastern Guide Dogs.
Guide Dogs. Okay.
And I think they're guidedogs.org.
Got it.
Is the the website.
Guidedogs.org.
And you can or you can Google or YouTube and if you go on YouTube, you'll see the videos of the dogs and also the testimonials by the veterans.
That's
and it's just it'll send chills.
Yes. For those of you who know veterans, that might be. I mean, check out that website because it's not just about fundraising. It's there's veterans out there that need it, and they generally don't go looking on their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of Youngstown Click. I'm so thankful that you were part of our click. We are growing. This has been so great, and I will see you guys we'll be back next week for yet another great conversation of Youngstown Click. Be connected. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everybody.